it's not a question, it's just a comment that you've mentioned about, in fact, quoted about Malcolm X. That's good, that's fine, but I think way before that, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at his Hujjatul, the last speech, yeah, he denounced categorically about all sorts of racism. I think you might have a good idea to include that in that speech as well, or part of that speech as well, which I think was very important.
Do you remember exactly what he said? I don't remember exactly. Does anybody here remember? Maybe
I don't remember exactly because that will be a quote, right?
And non-Arab does not have superiority of
something like that.
No.
It's all okay. It's wonderful message, but who is giving importance to it? Who is listening to it?
That's where. So basically, I mean, that's again the whole point of this presentation, and going forward also, and also our very first presentation was to actually ignite the curiosity which is all within us. So essentially, we all trying to educate. We don't have all the answers, and we never claim that we have all the answers to all the questions that you might have in the audience. That's why it's an open forum, an open discussion, back and forth. You learn, we learn from each other as well. We just have to be the primary purpose of this presentation was to actually get you guys thinking about things differently. Just to not believe in the narrative, which is just thinking, the government is in your favor, everything's black and white. That's what we're trying to get away from. We're trying to, give you different perspectives on the same issue, which you probably never have thought about it before. But just, get you guys thinking, go home and do your own research. But if you have any questions relevant to the presentation itself, we're willing to answer. Do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I mean, in the Quran says a good word is like a good tree. It yields fruits in every season. But a bad word is like basically a tree that is just good for firewood. So, your duty as a Muslim is to really spread the truth. And you don't know how it's gonna connect in the future. You don't know how it's gonna influence people. But we just have to get this message out that there is brotherhood, which the Prophet really talked about and the Quran talks about. And actually, as I'm trying to show here, it's beyond brotherhood. It's this whole idea of every sentient entity, from a worm to a human being, we have to respect it because it has consciousness. And that consciousness comes from Allah. He has created that consciousness, right? So once you realize that, then you will start to have sympathy for it because it's a conscious thing and it will suffer, all these things, and you will take care of it. So it doesn't just, what I'm saying is the Quranic message is not just about not even just about the human race, it's about everything, all of creation, the whole of creation. That's why the Prophet Muhammad was sent as a mercy to the worlds. And we'll talk about this maybe in some other time, and the reason why he was a mercy to the worlds is because there are other planets with life on them, and Quran talks about that. And they have their prophets, so they have their prophets who are a mercy to the worlds in that area. So the Prophet is a mercy to the world on the earth, the world of animals, human beings, everything. So we shouldn't be discouraged and say, oh, how are things going to change? I mean, what difference does it make if I talk about this? It doesn't make a difference. This is how things start, right? If you throw a rock in a pond, then the ripples spread. So each one of us has to do that, like the ripples spread. I'll give you a simple example. In the Quran, it talks a lot about animal welfare, and until my grandfather and I started talking about this in 1987, hardly anybody knew about this. But now it's spread throughout the world. If you go and check Al-Hafiz Masri on the internet, you'll find out that a lot of people know that Islam says a lot of things about animal welfare. But in 1987, when I talked to my grandfather, I said, we should write about the environment, and if he said, oh, what's the point, like who's going to listen? Then how would these things have happened? When I went to Harvard University, and they knew that I was the son of Masri, they were very pleased to see me. They said, and I didn't know this, they said that your grandfather's book, Animals in Islam, is being used as a classic textbook at Harvard. I had no idea. So you just don't know, how things are, going to affect, in the future. Your duty is to, if you know something, then speak about it. Don't be afraid, but do it in a, tactful way.
Yeah, do it in a nice
Yeah,
manner.
in the most beautiful manner.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it's, I would say, I would add
Yeah.
something it's just like that. When Allah said to Prophet Muhammad
Yeah.
that your duty is just to give the message.
Yes.
The rest of the part up to me.
Yeah.
So whatever the good deed, we have to spread that one. And the rest, leave it. People will understand one day, other day, and they will talk to each other. And if they are not going to understand, maybe someone else.
Yeah.
So that's how it's going on.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I was saying that the existence of all these bigotry and all these racism, all those discrimination, exists a long time. I mean, it's a history of mankind. And second thing is, if we bring out those things, it has bring a lot of changes. If you look at the history, we have positive changes. People are recognizing them. People are approaching. The root cause is of unknown, the fear of unknown. If I don't know you, how you behave in certain conditions, I'm fearful. So I'm not going to talk to you, I don't come to you. The best thing is to change the behavior and go and introduce yourself. That's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. The first thing he did, इखलाक हुस्ना दे, इंसान को करीब कर देता है। ये है number. Look at the woman and men's rights. Look at the still women are struggling. And look at the ratio, even Canadian states, even Europe and America, all over. So this is it. But if we don't talk, I enjoy it right now. Okay. One thing you mentioned that people don't born with the knowledge of racism. Actually, they learn. No, I don't agree with it. People do born with this because I have a liking or disliking. If you take some sort of statistic, that people like color, black, white, yellow, red, people have a preference. We call it preference rather than liking or disliking it. But that shouldn't classify it that. Okay. So I think more we talk about it, more we come to know that, and then we say, okay, what's the solution now? What we should do in order to reduce it or eliminate it?
Well, and
That's what I'm
no, I agree with you to a certain extent, but not completely, because I think that what this racism, what this whole concept means is that I am superior to you, I am better than you, and therefore you will not get the same rights as me. And there's a whole political issues related to this, capitalism and all that. But when if two children are playing, that's a preference. It's like, you don't like the person. Maybe it's just it's not that the child is not saying I'm superior to you, or it has got nothing to do with superiority or inferiority. Actually, when I was in Pakistan, when I went there, I don't come from Pakistan, but my wife is from Pakistan, and the young children were saying that they're saying to the adults, why are you not allowing the children of the servants to play with us? Because they're treating them differently. Because to children, it's just natural, It's us human beings who make a lot of these distinctions. That we cannot let the servants' children play, because then you're giving them too much. They might come and steal stuff. So what I'm saying is that like there's some natural innate things. Like, for example, if you give a child alcohol, he's gonna make a face like this, like 3-year-old. But if you give him honey, it's sweet. So they're inbuilt things. They're fitra. The fitra does not discriminate. The fitra is very natural. It's something, and in the Quran it says that this is something that does not change. You will find no change in this basic nature that Allah has made. But what happens is that you have to realize that if you want to control societies, then you have to divide and rule. If you have to divide and rule, then you have to demonize a particular group or say that another group is not superior. Because, for example, when slavery began, they started to say that the blacks have a lower intelligence, they are just born like that, they're just, so really it was because they were, you see, when a human being does something wrong, or is doing something very wrong, then it's going against the fitra, so he or she has to justify it. Plus they have to build laws so that they protect themselves from the rest of the people. So So really, this is. I agree with you to a very large extent, but not about the comment about the children.
What you're saying, there's a lot of political reason, economical reason,
Yeah.
financial reason, need reason. The slavery you mentioned, it was a need reason, because there was not available labor. Because you have to go to Trinidad, Guyana, to brought these slave people. You go for financial aid to the third country, so-called, I don't know, I never understand which is the third country is. Neither anybody can explain that, okay? But what I'm saying is basically because you like to protect yourself. That's why you're paying that. That's why you're paying the money and paying all these subsidies and all these to keep yourself safe. So discrimination, you can qualify that. But what I'm saying is to bring awareness. This is a wonderful job. Which,
Yeah,
but and that's just introduce yourself to the people who are not aware of you.
No,
that
no.
you are not different than them. That's
yeah.
all.
But
That's all.
slavery has been one of the worst disasters of humankind ever. Because you see, slavery, what it did, it did not make a human being inventive to devise mechanics to do things. They just then started, for example, the Egyptians, for thousands of years, they just kept slaves. And for example, if you don't have slaves, then you have to think about how am I going to move this thing from there? I have to devise things. I have to, get into mathematics. I have to get into mechanics. And actually, I think maybe one of the reasons, this is something that I just thought of, is why Islam spread, became so advanced, is because it was abolishing slavery. And people had to think about how to devise mechanical things. So they devised that, right? Al-Jazari, he has a book of, mechanical objects, it's quite amazing. So when a human being does something wrong, then it stops the human being's intellectual growth, and this is what has happened in
I wish
society.
we have more time to sit and exchange the views.
Yeah.
But definitely you did a good job. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comment on this?
Anyone else?
I think racism is not only the person who look different from one and each other, but it's also the mental state, right? When someone thinks that I'm superior
Hmm.
and the other one is inferior. So I think this thing started right from the creation of Adam and Eve.
Yeah, with Iblis and
Iblis said that one, that I am superior because my creation is from Adam and you are inferior. So it starts from
Yeah, but that's fine. But what I'm saying is that again, if you don't measure it by reason, then you yourself will think you're superior to others. But logically speaking, how can you be proud of something that you had no control over? So it's irrational, right? It's irrational.
it's not rational.
Yeah, in the whole.
and also the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't have control on your color, where it's decided by the God. Where this child is going to be born.
Yeah.
The child's parents are going to be white, black, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I said in my action plan, I suggested, well, this is just my suggestion, that it's a spread of rationality, right? With your peers, try to get them out of their comfort zone, see where they stand, and then kind of reason with them. Because I think a lot of times when we're at work with our colleagues, we just talk about sports or work, and that's it, right? We don't get philosophical with them. We don't talk about these more bigger questions, more meaningful questions, right? So that is my suggestion, and I would love to have any comments on what I've suggested and what other kind of suggestions that people may have.
You're right, but most people, they're not interested in these kind of topics. I'm not saying that we don't have to. We have to be optimistic. But majority of the people, in our own group, when you start talking about God, the minute you start, you will hear that person is lying like this.
Again, it also
Or-
has to, I think we also have to be very objective about this. I completely agree with you, I concur with what you have said there, but at the same time, let's think about these things differently. Let's approach, for example, if I'm talking about God to my nephew and niece, they're probably gonna fall asleep, that's very true. But we maybe have to kind of rethink our approach depending on different segments of the population. So if I'm talking to somebody elderly, I want to probably talk about more in more in a philosophical way. If I'm talking to a teenager, I'll probably start a conversation which is more close to him or her. So we have to be very careful and tactical about that as well. And we also have attached a certain sort of it's almost dogmatic that if anyone talks about God, then it's gonna be all Jesus, Muhammad, peace be upon him, it's all gonna be nonsense like that. That's a very response we get whenever we talk about, especially to non-Muslims, even the Muslims nowadays as well. So again, as I said before, we just have to approach these people differently, and be creative about these things, and kind of sense where they're coming from. Add something to it.
Why do they all the policemen and the courts and the judges and the lawyers? We know some people are going to murder each other. We know some people are going to drive very fast or carelessly and going to cause the collisions and deaths and all. So does that mean, since it has been happening for centuries, it will keep on happening for centuries? So let's get rid of all the police department. Let's get rid of all the judges. We can save lots of money if we don't have to pay the policemen. But we have to keep trying. There are diseases, for example. We usually do not have very good cures for many diseases. We might have treatments only. But we still have to keep trying to find more cures, and we have to keep trying to provide the treatments to patients who are already suffering with something. If nothing else, we can't extend their life. Maybe we can make their life at least less miserable. So what you're saying is correct. And practically speaking, we cannot change the whole world, but we can keep an eye on situation. We can control things to some extent. And this is done all the time probably in the places where we work. And if we don't worry about all these things, we do not apply these rules, then things will go haywire. They will go totally out of control. So in order to keep the things in proper perspective, we have to keep doing it all the time. We have to keep educating ourselves, our families, our friends, our employers, our governments. Everybody needs that education. And just for one reason, we want to keep a control on these things and limit. We can't eliminate, like we could not eliminate, say, the robbers, the murderers, the bad drivers, and all that. But at least we have some control. We have some security for ourselves and everybody around us.
Yes.
So and
yeah.
one more thing that I want to say. A gentleman was earlier, I don't know who, a gentleman mentioned something about nature has given us a choice or something. The word he used, I should have made notes, but I didn't make notes. Actually, all these habits and all these thoughts and all these likes and dislikes are learned behavior. We like a white person or a white woman or a white man or something over a black person. We like a rich person, we like to respect a rich person over a poor person. These are all learned behavior. We learned it. We weren't born with those traits or characteristics. I was just mentioning to one of the gentlemen there that recently I saw an article, and apparently it was in Star. I thought it was one of the BBC publications. And they proved biologically that there is no such thing as a race. Like, we often talk about, oh, this is a different race. I belong to a different race. You are from a different race. There is no such thing as race. You're human, and that's it. So that's what I want.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
Thank you.
So,
Anyone else?
Yeah, maybe I'll just comment. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you know that there's another hadith of the Prophet in which he said that on Doomsday, the day of Judgment Qiyamah, if a person he takes a sapling of a date palm and plants it, when Qiyamah is happening, he will be rewarded for it.
Yeah.
Because it is your effort towards life, towards sustenance, just your attitude, that is the greatest thing. You see, even in that situation, right? So is that guy crazy? Like, the universe is ending. Why is that person planting it? The Prophet wanted to show that it's your attitude, attitude towards creativity, seeking solutions, life. This is the attitude of a Muslim. Then the other thing is that in the Quran it's talking, this is not the time for me to get into it in great detail, but I'll just tell you something. In the Quran it says, we will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until they know that this is the truth. Is it not sufficient that your sustainer is a witness to this? So Allah is actually talking about the future, that Allah is going to show mankind slowly all the signs, about the universe, that it's compatible with the Quran, about human nature, consciousness, and all this knowledge is going to come, and slowly, step by step, people are going to come to the Quran. This is what Allah is saying. Allah is talking about the future. It goes even more than that, but essentially it has to do with the issue of consciousness, because He says we will show them our signs in the horizons. That means outside, because as human beings we look outside first, so our knowledge of the outside is greater than the knowledge of the inside. For example, biological sciences, we know less about them and about what consciousness is. It's inside us. But now we're finding out more. So that's why Allah has put horizons first and then within themselves. In my opinion, what that verse is actually saying is that when human beings understand what consciousness is, this is the big question, what is consciousness? Okay? When they really understand it, at that point humanity will be united. But this is another topic, where
one point, I definitely like it.
Yeah, what is consciousness, do we have a soul? It has many implications,
As it was united before.
What's that?
As it was united before.
Yeah, as it was united before, mankind was once united but that's another issue. Yeah.
I think the topic you have chosen, because at present going on, everybody has in his mind to think over that. But keeping in view of the Quranic concept, I think it is based on that, as in Surah Baqarah, Allah Ta'ala says, La takraba hadhihi shajarata fatakuna min al-zalimin. So actually, this was the ruler and being ruled. Both Allah had ordained that they should not come near to the shajara, means such system which is individual for the sake of one family, for the sake of one person. But if they had done like that, they will be out of zalimi. They will be discriminating the rights of the other. Okay? But in the history we have seen, even in Quran we have learnt about Musa and Pharaoh, that there are discrimination for the community of Moses, as Pharaoh had treated them as a second-class citizen. And there it came the racism, because every ruling person, they don't want to do anything. They want somebody to do for them. And this has given the idea or the pictorial view of Mullah, the Qarun and Haman and Pharaoh. That was actually the unity with which the Pharaoh had been discriminating the second-class citizen.
Yeah.
And the Moses came in his court and he pleaded for the second-class citizen.
Yeah.
No, it is discrimination. If you don't give us this right as a charter, that we can also survive in this world, Arsil Maya Bani Israel, then allow the Bani Israel, they should go with me. But Pharaoh had not allowed Moses to move with his community. So I think at present the domination from the powerful countries is the same, to keep other a second racism, a second class citizen. And we are discussing the same thing. This can be eliminated if we follow the Quran, that everybody Allah has created, they are one and the same thing.
Yes.
They are out of the male and female.
Yeah.
So inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. everybody who is the best acting upon that Quranic rules, all these rules, they are the best nation, they are the best peoples. Now we have to see that the powerful countries, they don't allow the other countries to survive with their own resources. They are actually capturing their resources, and they want to keep them always a third world countries, so that their domination may remain for ever. So this can only be the racism which you are telling, that can only be eliminated by keeping the view of this Quran.
Yeah.
As Moses has pleaded, we being Muslim, although we are in downfall, we should continue our efforts, our revolution, keeping in view of this Quran,
Yeah.
we can be successful.
Yes.
We should not be worried about that.
Yes.
What I was going to say was that one of the issues that was raised was the practicality of achieving a certain goal with respect to the ideals that we've discussed today, right? So there's a difference between you talk about the question of how things are versus how the world should be, right? One is a descriptive question, and the other question is again about the ideal. But then you want to think about ways that are likely to succeed in if not achieving your ideal, or moving your the way things are at least closer to the ideal, right?
Close the gap.
Closer to the ideal than
Yeah.
how they are right now, right? So I think one of the things that actually arises when we talk about things like closer than is we have to get to an idea of get to a sort of precise notion of measures for social phenomena. So I'm getting a little bit technical here, but I think it's pertinent, right? So I mean, when we say that historically there's been a problem of slavery or of racism and class distinctions and oppression within these systems, these are single category words that are describing a wide range of phenomena that share certain degrees of commonality, but then there's differences within these, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, you can get a spectrum. You can say that although all of these things fall within this spectrum, there's variation within the spectrum, so that we can have worse cases of
A rating,
objectively
a rating, a ranking, a
yeah,
gradation.
a ranking. And I think that's one of the things that we have to get towards a system of ranking, so that we can have nuanced discussions of what sort of type or level of ranking of a particular problem in racism is occurring in what specific historical phenomenon. The reason why this is necessary is because if you want to, first of all, if you have this practical problem where you're saying, there's this problem, we want to fix it, can we fix it? It's very difficult to fix it without power. One of the ways you know that you can do certain things is historically you look at the variation in the outcomes and say, look here, in this particular context, in this particular time, this was the problem. Now look 30 years later, and there's been a measurable change in the outcomes, even though it's never come about to the degree that racism has been eliminated. But you could have, within modern context, you could look at the number of racially motivated murders for a particular class of minority, quote unquote. I know that you might have issues with the words, but developing a proper system of words is something that you also need to understand the phenomenon properly. And this is very necessary because you need to sort of, in order to come up with theories, in order to come up with strategies of what to do in this particular context, we have to look at, within history, the most appropriately sort of structurally similar problems.
Yes, I agree,
Right?
100%.
And see what were the sorts of actions and that different people undertook,
Yeah.
and what were the measurable
Yeah,
changes
you're
in the
using
outcomes.
models basically. The
Yeah,
model that
exactly.
fits you.
Exactly. So I know this is a very introductory
Yeah.
sort of discussion of this, but what I'm saying is we have to develop in that extent, and then you have to survey a range of historical phenomena and say, although the sort of global problem is this racist attitude in these particular situations, the manifestation within this context was measurably worse. To what degree, right? And you have to think about what are measurably different phenomena. Like lynching is a very different phenomenon from, being called a bad word on a street, or even being removed off of a plane in a manner that your life is preserved and your overall rights later on are still preserved. That's still a worse phenomenon. The main concern, I think, right now within our particular context is not the fact that these particular things are happening, but that there's a concern that it could get really worse really fast, right? Because it's not, these are sort of, inklings of phenomena, but there could be structural breaks that could cause the worst types of people within the Western nation to come into a dominant position of power.
The right-wing parties.
Someone like Donald Trump, say, right? And that could lead to situations where things could get really bad, really, really fast. And what we need to think about, this is my attitude, that what we need to be thinking about as Muslims living in the West, in the modern situation, is what sort of actions can we do first, I think, to prevent a major structural break from happening that would result in some sort of calamity or some sort of internment camp-like situation with the Muslims living over here.
Yeah,
That's one strategic goal that I think is important, and the second one is then obviously to just sort of reduce the whole atmosphere. And I think there has to be a very not just we can't talk about just platitudes. At some point we have to talk about real. We have to get very precise and there's no clear answers. Empirical questions are very difficult, but we have to.
Sorry, we have to go to another program.
Yeah. But I think
Sorry
that
to late.
We still have time. I just want to comment, just to make a few comments on what you stated. You said it can get really worse real fast, right? And that's very true. And it looks like whatever politicians say does make a big impact. So, for example, previous Prime Minister Stephen Harper, he was blaming Islamicism, right?
Yeah.
See how that kind of changed the way people think, for people who are not thinking, how it sways them, right? One of the reasons, okay, and I just want to actually mention this. You talked about minorities, right? So there was an article in the Star. It was a study on demographics. So here, just listen to this quote, okay? Fully 53% of its residents are foreign-born, and 56% are visible minorities. Okay? So it goes on to say that's putting the area on a course where minorities will soon dominate. What the heck does this mean?
Who's writing this? Sorry?
This was in the Star. It was a while back, but I wanted to mention that. So the minority is going to be the majority, but they're still called minorities. Interesting, right? See how the way things. I mean, logically speaking, there's no such thing as minority or majority or visible minority. It all comes down to us being human beings. And a society made up of a human society made up of human beings. There's no such thing as minorities. Majority or visible minority. These are terms simply aimed at pigeonholing segments of human society. So it kind of ties in with Ali's presentation, how they keep on hitting with you these phrases, and then you think, okay, I am part of this now, and this is how it's going to be for the rest of our lives, right? So, the reason it comes back to what I suggest as an action plan is because if people are operating rationally and consistently, then whatever the media spews shouldn't affect you. You know what I'm saying? So no matter what